Don't worry, Fulham, Bournemouth and Forest fans, we're not leaving you behind on the channel because we will be covering your guys' transfer stories throughout the summer transfer window with the Premier League transfer rumour roundup. Now, you may have noticed on the thumbnail I've got 14 out of the 20 Premier League clubs there, and that's because we're going to be focusing on those 14 clubs for these Premier League transfer rumour roundup videos. We're not really going to be discussing any of the big six transfers as they get plenty of coverage already, but instead we're mostly going to be focusing on the teams in the bottom half of the Premier League, and we've already seen plenty of transfer rumours swirling about, particularly with the three newly promoted clubs. We'll have plenty of crossover with this and the Championship transfer rumours as well, but without any further ado, let's hop into the rumours. We'll start out with a little bit of Nottingham Forest news because they're being heavily linked with the move for Wolves' Morgan Gibbs-White. He's coming off the back of a terrific season with Sheffield United, obviously, in the end, I suppose, had his hand to play in Forest promotion after he missed in the penalty shootout. But that's not to take anything away from Morgan Gibbs-White and the Championship campaign that he's just had. I think that he's earned this proper crack at the Premier League now, and this will really come down to the discretion of what Wolves are going to look to do with the player. Wolves themselves already look like they have a few shortages in some areas, and with a player like Gibbs-White, he's never quite been able to establish himself in that Wolves setup, but from their perspective this is probably the most saleable he's ever going to be in terms of the length of his contract, the season he's just coming off the back of, and the current interest from other Premier League clubs. But Wolves may have their own decision to make for him in terms of whether they see him in their setup next season. It's not just Forest who have been linked, Southampton have also been spoken about. I would like to see Morgan Gibbs-White over a full season in the Premier League because he's certainly earned that chance now. And understandably so, Forest are also keen to get a deal done for Aston Villa striker Keane Davis. Now, Forest probably have more work to do than the other promoted clubs because of the reliance on those loanees throughout their Championship campaign, you know. 4 or so of those loanees were, you know, 4 of their best players throughout that season, and Keane Davis certainly added a new dynamic to that Forest side in the second half of the season. We're probably going to see a little bit of a domino effect with this one because Villa themselves, as we'll look into later in the video, are after another striker, and once they go ahead and land that, it may then open the door for Keane Davis to leave on a permanent basis, although I'm sure that Villa will be looking for a pretty penny for him. One team will be getting the bargain on Joe Rodwell this summer, and Nottingham Forest seemingly could be that side. His contract at Ewood Park is expiring. One of, for me, the best creative forces in the Championship this season in terms of dribbling, getting out of tight spaces, key passes and making those progressive passes from the midfield areas. Forest have a decision to make. You know, they could look to go back in for a player like Zinkernagel, or they could look for different avenues, and it seems like they're going down this path for Joe Rodwell. Plenty of other Championship clubs have also been linked with the Blackburn playmaker, but if he had the choice between Premier League and Championship, you'd think that the ball would be in Forest court in that aspect. And then the final one on Nottingham Forest for the time being, they've also been linked with Swansea forward Joel Perrault. Now this would be a fascinating one. You'd imagine that Swansea would be looking for quite the transfer fee for their star asset, but Nottingham Forest have, you know, just that. They've got money to spend with their promotion to the Premier League, and someone like Perrault I think could be a decent fit at Premier League level. He scores from unlikely angles. He isn't a forward who, you know, relies upon clear-cut chances to hit the back of the net. He scored some absolutely outrageous goals throughout the season for Swansea, and he's also fairly versatile as well. You know, started out seemingly looking like a traditional number 9, but as the season went on, dropped back into that sort of number 10 role behind Obafemi. 22 goals, 6 assists to show for this season. I certainly think that Forest could do a lot worse than Perrault. Thomas Strakosha seems to be top of Fulham's goalkeeper list in terms of them adding to this department coming into this next season. It does look like an obvious position that Fulham are looking to target. We've seen some other links to Areola, who was obviously there in their previous Premier League campaign. Burnley's Nick Pope has also been talked about, but at the moment, most fingers are being pointed towards Strakosha as that most obvious sign-in. Aston Villa's Matt Targett has also been linked with a move back to Fulham. Was quite a popular player, if I remember rightly, at Craven Cottage from his previous spell there. Obviously, spent the second half of last season out on loan at Newcastle, who you would imagine would have been in the frame for him, but it seems like Fulham have also thrown their hat in the ring for the left back. And Fenerbahce's Bright Samuel has also been linked with a move to Craven Cottage. We had some rumblings coming from Turkey back in January that Asai Samuel was potentially looking for that move back to England, and Fulham have been the latest club to be linked with the winger. Now, I can't speak of much of his form at Turkey. I can't claim to be a big watcher of the Turkish league, but from his time at Queen's Park Rangers, there's undoubtedly a fantastic player in there. He's 24 years old, so not old by any means, and has a certain amount of flair and unpredictability that I think would be welcomed in that Fulham squad. We spoke about this one a couple of videos ago, but Bournemouth are continuing to monitor the situation with Middlesbrough midfielder Marcus Taverner. It seems like Middlesbrough have their own targets for who they like to go after in this transfer window, and that may be dependent on them making a sale or two. Marcus Taverner is obviously one of their more saleable assets coming off the back of the season that he's just had. I think he's been a great fit into that Chris Wilder side, but Bournemouth are interested at this point in time. And probably Middlesbrough's most saleable asset is Jed Spencer. After the tweet he put out after the playoff final, I think it's fair to say that he won't be going back to Middlesbrough and they will be looking to offload him. Several Premier League clubs are currently being spoken about at this point in time when it does come to Jed Spencer. Spurs, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest all interested in the right wing back. Crucial member of that promoted side for Nottingham Forest. I'm sure that they'd absolutely love to get him back, and Spencer's even said himself, he'd welcome a move back to Nottingham Forest, but ultimately his future isn't necessarily in his own hands, and Middlesbrough are going to hold an auction for him, and I guess it's highest bidder wins. You'd imagine that Spurs would maybe be in the driving seat, Champions League football, Antonio Conte, but you wouldn't completely rule out Newcastle or Forest. James Tarkowski is also a point of debate at the moment. It seems like Everton, as of recording, is his most likely destination. We've also seen Newcastle and Aston Villa linked with him, although after Villa completed the deal for Diego Carlos, it looks as if Tarkowski may be off elsewhere. Reportedly so, Aston Villa are yet to make any sort of formal contact in terms of an approach for Luis Suarez, but this link has been quite well documented. He's 35 years old now, but still put up relatively decent numbers last season for Atleti. He scored 11 goals, got 2 assists from 20 starts and 15 substitute appearances. This Suarez deal, or anyone else that Villa may go after, will then set off quite the domino effect around the Premier League and Football League, really. Obviously, it has an effect on the Keane Davis potential deal. From my point as a Preston fan, we're hopeful to get Cameron Archer back potentially on loan for another season. That's going to hinge on Villa getting another striker, and at this point in time it doesn't seem to be all too close, but this is the next position that they're obviously going to be looking into. Leeds United are looking to reassess their forward options going into next season. Currently there's big links linking Rafinha with a big money move away, and one potential move that they could go in for is for Blackburn's Brereton-Diaz. Now, this transfer story came up back in January, if I remember correctly, and it seems more than likely that this is the time that Blackburn are going to be looking for a sale. They went ahead and triggered that 1-year extension on his contract, so he's just got 12 months left on his deal now for Blackburn, and this is where they maximise on that potential sale value, really. Leeds have been spoken about. Reportedly so, Blackburn are looking for around about 20 million, which seems like, I don't know, quite a lot to me, considering he's only got 1 year left in his deal, but that might be, just Blackburn trying to drive up the price, and a bit of a bidding war between some Premier League clubs, but Leeds have been the most obvious shout for Brereton at this point in time. And we'll finish off with a bit of goalkeeping news. It's looking like Nick Pope's preferred destination will be Southampton, with them seeming to be in the driving seat for the Burnley shot stopper at this point in time. Where would Burnley have been over the last few years had it not been for Nick Pope? Now, Burnley are obviously in the situation where they are going to have to shift on some of their more saleable assets, and Nick Pope is probably the most saleable asset that they've got at the club, along with Cornet and McNeil. Over the course of this Premier League season, 116 saves for Nick Pope. Only 4 Premier League goalkeepers made more saves throughout the year than the Burnley shot stopper, and it probably makes sense from Southampton's point of view as well, with Fraser Forster moving on this summer. And it's looking like Sam Johnstone will be getting his Premier League move as well, with Crystal Palace looking like his preferred destination. His contract at West Brom had come to an end this summer, and so he is available on a free transfer, and it's looking like Crystal Palace are going to go ahead and snap him up. Does look like there will be a little bit of movement with Crystal Palace's goalkeepers this season, with Jack Butland's future currently up in the air. There have been a few clubs sniffing around him recently, and Sam Johnstone obviously getting that move back to the Premier League. I don't think that last season probably particularly unfolded like Sam Johnson would have hoped. He sort of had his ups and downs throughout that season. There was that little bit of a falling out between him and Ishmael towards the end of his tenure there as well. So he'll be looking to sort of re-establish himself this time around as a Premier League goalkeeper. Well guys, there we have it. Those are all the transfer rumours floating about the Premier League at this point in time. If you've seen any others that we didn't mention in today's video, make sure to get them in the comments down below. If you do go on to enjoy this concept as well, make sure to leave a like and I'll make it a weekly segment on the channel. Do stick around for some regular content and I'll see you all in the next one.